Welcome back to the Serenity Dojo. I'm John Ferguson Smart, and today we'll be looking at some of the bundled WebDriver Screenplay action or interaction classes that come with Screenplay and that make it easier and more fluid to write your web tests. Let's dive straight into the code. We'll have a look at the task that we implemented in the last episode. Here we've got two prime examples of some very common WebDriver interaction classes. We have enter and we have click. Now, actions or interactions are basically classes that encapsulate a interaction between the user and the system. So we're not thinking in terms of pages or fields in a page as such. We're thinking in terms of behavior, of how the user interacts with the application. So what does the user do? The user enters a value into a field. The user clicks on a form. And where do we get that field from? Well, we get it from a page object that's only role in life, its only job is to contain the locators for the field. And the locators use this target as a rule. So typically the most common form of locator is a target. And the reason that's the most common form of the locator is that it's convenient. It allows us to provide a convenient field name that will appear in the reports, and also a locator strategy, which can be any of the standard Selenium locator strategies. Enter the value is a simple structure. It takes a value, which is typically a string, and it passes it into either a target or potentially a web element or web element facade, or even a by selector. So these by selectors we have here can also be used in our selector. So we could actually take one of these by statements and simply insert it here. And that would work into, and we'll find it by locate going to. Now this would typically be, the by statement would be more likely a form of this constant. So what would be more likely is we would have a target to and then target to as with a by, make it a by. And then rather than having a target, we'd have a by. So some legacy page objects may use that structure. As I mentioned earlier on, the disadvantage of that approach is that we lose the benefit of the reporting, but still Serenity will accept it without any problem. The thing we can do with the enter interaction is we can add then click. Now then click will allow you to add a sequence of key actions. So these are the Selenium keys. We can have tab, enter, add, arrows, backspace, clear, basically anything on the keyboard can be simulated there. Some of the more commons are tab and enter. And here's a common example. Would say enter a value into a particular field, then hit arrow down and then tab. This is often useful just as a convenience to get JavaScript to trigger whatever events really need to be triggered for the application to work properly. The second one we want to look at is the click. Now click, it does what you'd expect. It clicks on an element. And as in the enter, we can click on a target, we can click on an element, or we can click on a list of by locators. We can actually not only send one locator, but a sequence of by locators to narrow down into what we want. So we might say by ID to define a table on the page, and then by some CSS selector or XPath selector to define the row within that table that we're interested in. So there are our two, probably the most common ones, enter and click. They're probably the most common of the interaction classes. The next action I want to look at is the action that allows you to select elements more conveniently in a drop-down list. Here I've got a new test, request assisted travel. Now Tracy has chosen to request assisted travel, and she has to enter her name. Enter her name as Dr. Tracy Traveller. Doctor is something that will appear in a drop-down list, and we'll have a look at the screens very shortly. Inside the enter her name task, we have the task that we need to do, the interactions that we need to do. Let's have a look at the page to see what we're actually dealing with. The page we're going to be working with looks like this. It's a simple form with a number of fields, some of which are drop-downs. What we're going to do in this exercise is select a value in the title drop-down. So I'm going to want to enter Dr. Tracy Traveller. And to do that, I use the Select from Options interaction. Select from Options is like the Selenium Select. In fact, it uses the Selenium Select class under the hood and allows you to do the usual by visible text, by index, and by value. If I say by visible text and pass in Doctor, I can then say where I want to get it to. I can say I can get it from a target, from a sequence of bilocators, from a CSS or XPath expression directly, which I would not hard code in the task. I would usually have it in an object, page object, or from a web element with a similar constraint. So I've got a fair bit of flexibility about where I actually get this field from. Now I need to figure out where exactly I'm going to get this field from. So a logical place would be on the assisted travel page, and I can create a constant of some kind that will represent the title field. I've got my choice. I can do as a web element facade, a target, a string, or even a by. In this case, I'm going to do a target because of the reporting capabilities that we looked at in previous episodes. I'm going to say target, the title, located by a CSS or XPath expression. This is the point where we need to look at the page and figure out how to actually obtain this expression. Let's have a look at this field. It's a select, all right. It's got a name of __ field 2399 and an ID. And this is what you often get with non-trivial UI frameworks where the HTML or the JavaScript is actually generated. So it's quite a complicated expression, and we don't want to use this sort of ID or field because it may be regenerated next time the screen changes, which will be problematic. Now what we do have is a div section. Now the div section is this block, and we have a label. Now the label has got a business-friendly section title. And when we need to find things that contain text, we haven't got a lot of choices. We need to do it with XPath. Let's see how we can find an XPath expression here. So I'm going to do $X on the console, and I'm going to do something like div label. It's actually knows what I'm looking for, and we're looking for a div that contains a label. So there are quite a lot of them. All of the fields basically have labels, so we're going to need to narrow it down a little bit. This is how I like to find elements on a page. I create some XPath or CSS and I build it out. So we want a label, a div that contains a label, and we want the label to contain some text. So we say contains. We want the body of the label to contain title. So this reads, we're looking for a div that has a label directly on it, underneath it, and the label must contain the word title in it. And that's found the div we're interested in. But we're not actually interested in the div, we're interested in the select that comes underneath it. So let's see what happens if I say now/select. And this is exactly what we're after. It finds a select. And you can see here, it's a reasonably readable expression. If you're okay with XPath, you can figure out what that means. But more importantly, it's an expression that is expressing things around the business logic, around the business values, not around any generated IDs. So it should be reasonably robust. In our code now, we can replace this located by string with the XPath that we just found. And what this means is that we should have a perfectly working test. Let's recap what we've seen here. So what we have here is a select from options object, which will create an instance of a interaction class that the actor can use with the actor's browser. So Tracy has her browser. She's going to use the select from options action or interaction to interact with the title drop-down list on the assisted travel page. So that's a brief rundown of Serenity interactions. In the next lesson, we're going to have a look at how to query a web page and what Serenity provides out of the box in terms of inspecting elements on the page. But for now, that's enough for today. So it's John Smart signing out. Until next time.